Hosted by Mike, the Big Cheese.
Welcome back to the Heavy Metal Mayhem radio show. You know, it's Mother's Day today here in the U.S., and I want to wish my wife, my mother, my mother-in-law, my sister, and my sister-in-laws, and all the metal mothers out there today a happy Mother's Day. We got a great show for everybody. Up first, Scott Earl from Culprit and TKO. And the second half of the show, Mitch Thylacine from Killen. We'll get to Mitch in about 5 minutes or so. I'll get on one more tune. We'll play something off the newly reissued record. The album is out now it came back out in the day, I believe, on Important Records, but Cult Metal Classics has re-released it, remastered it. They are definitely one of the best labels out there, I have to say today. The bands that, Manos chooses to work with and re-release those albums by, they are cult underground classics. Bands that most of us diehard fans love. And he puts his albums back out again that most of us can't get or find anywhere else. So cheers to him for doing this. And I know he's working on 2 Rods re-releases right now. And speaking of the Rods, Carl Kennedy from the Rods will be on the show next Sunday night, as well as Adam Bomb, who we were talking about with Scott earlier. Scott just went out on the road with Adam Bomb. Adam Bomb will also be our guest next week. So don't forget to tune into that. And this Thursday on the Metal Matinee, it's 6 Degrees of Joe Lynn Turner. We'll be featured all music by JLT. Joe was a guest on the show quite a few years ago, and he was a really fun guy to talk to. I think most New Yorkers are, So I would love to have him back on again one day. It'll be fun. All right, so let's get to some E-Trope right now with Break It Back. We'll go right into some Killen, and then I will get Mitch on the line.
Fire
Killen, Birth of a King. I don't think that song was ever released back in the day, but it's on the new reissued version of the record on Cult Metal Classic Records. Pick it up. It comes out May 22nd. Let's get Mitch on the line right now. Mitch is probably sitting about 12 houses away from me because we both live in the same borough. Could have had him here live in the studio if I thought about that. But let's get Mitch on the line.
Hello.
Mitch, it's Mike from Heavy Metal Mayhem. How are you?
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I was just saying, I'm looking at the number. I'm like, he's probably sitting about 10 houses away from me right now. We could have did this live in the studio. I didn't even realize it. You gotta love technology. You can sit on your couch and do an interview today.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Hey, well, listen, I can't tell you how happy I am, and I think a lot of other cult underground metal fans are that this album is finally being re-released. I mean, I can't. I mean, I don't know any other way people could have gotten it unless they found it on eBay somewhere over the years. But it's fine, and it sounds amazing. On top of that, what a great job was done on it.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on. And yet, no one was more surprised about this whole thing than me when Manos from Sonic Age and Cult Metal Classics contacted me, because I had totally forgotten about the band, and I assumed everyone else did too. But I was really surprised and shocked and humbled that people still remember the album and people still want the album. So I'm really glad how it worked out so far.
Yeah, I mean, you are talking like 30 something years ago all this took place, and the band itself. I mean, you formed it out here in Staten Island, I think around 82, maybe 83, in that area, and it was a time when Metallica and Slade just had the debut records out. That whole scene was just starting to. I mean, it was right before the explosion where like this whole scene here in the U.S. kind of took off at that point in time, and you guys had just started out. Really, probably a bunch of teenagers back then.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we got in when we did, because not too long after the album came out, which I think was in '87, the grunge thing started coming around, and metal kind of took the back burner. So I'm just glad we had a taste of it and we were able to enjoy it, because we were metalheads. We loved, we used to hang out with Moors all the time, see Manowar and Anthrax, King Diamond, and we were just glad to be part of it, and I'm glad we got in when we did, because shortly after that, unfortunately, everything kind of changed. So
yeah,
glad we got a taste of it.
Sure. Well, I mean, being a part of the scene, back then, I mean, I guess you weren't saying to yourself, we got to get all this out because, the scene is going to change. Things are going to change. I don't know if any of us saw it really coming.
I thought it was going to last forever. I was shocked because when we were going to do our second album, all of a sudden it was just like everything just was different. Everything just got ugly. It was like, what is this?
It's incredible how you go like a year before and a year later, just say like right on the cusp of it, and record labels were starting four kids sitting in the garage just to get an album out by them, and then 24 months later they didn't even want to know who you were. I mean, there were bands that were established that were saying, they were like, I remember, I think it was a Behind the Music episode with the band Warrant. And they're like, we put out Cherry Pie and our posters were up on the wall and we walked on gold. And like 2 days later, our posters were in a garbage pail and something else is up. They didn't want to know us anymore. And that was like a major hit song, back then.
Well, the good news is, I mean, obviously people are still into it and metal is alive. I mean, I was just at the Bell House in Brooklyn not too long ago, and the Rods and Exciter played, and it was amazing. It was packed. And it reminded me of being in Lemore's in 1985, so
it did.
Metal is alive and well.
It really was. That was a great 2-day show. The only difference between now and Lemore's is I had to sit down a little bit more now than I did back in the day. But thank God for bar stools. But you're right. It is back in a way, and I think like the old timers like myself, we appreciate it because we feel like we're kids again, and we're getting to enjoy all of these bands. And a lot of the younger kids today have latched on to this sound and to our music, where they kind of forgotten their own generation's music, and they've really have gotten into the classic stuff from the 80s.
Well, I mean, you can't blame the young kids for being into it, because I think the music is a better quality.
Yeah.
than what they have now. You know, I mean, everything is just so manufactured, and I don't feel it comes from the heart. I mean, back then, you know, I mean, even if we didn't do the album or anything else, I mean, we were doing the music that we loved, and it came from the heart, and I think it shows. You know, these days, I think you lost a lot of that. I think there's pressure put on these new bands to sound a certain way and look a certain way and do things a certain way, and it's not real, you know. And I think it just comes across as not being real, just manufactured, you know, in a lab.
Yeah. True. Well, you know, I think of Staten Island back in the '80s, and not exactly a place. You know, there were quite a few great clubs that had. We had October's. I think it was Park Villa. We had the Paramount
Right.
on Bay Street. There were places to play,
Hmm.
but as far as bands go, not a lot of bands out here. You guys savaged through us about the only two bands I can really think of at the time that a lot of great musicians came from out here. But you know, was it
Hmm.
hard finding people to play with out here that kind of had the same goal, the same vision? Because from the beginning, it seems like Killen always wanted to be bigger and better than everybody else.
Well, the good thing was everyone was into metal, which was good. The problem was the quality versus the quantity of people, because we were looking for a singer for a really long time, and you know, everyone said they could sing, and you know, most people couldn't, and you know, just going through all those people trying to find the right person, and a bass player too, for that matter, it was pretty hard. You know, I mean, everyone loved metal and was a fan, but to get somebody serious that was going to show up every day to rehearsal and really follow through, that was the hard part.
Yeah. Well, you talking about bass? I mean, Mark actually started out as a guitar player in the band alongside yourself before I guess
Right.
switching over to bass when you couldn't find probably a decent bass player to fit in.
Yeah, I mean, we were so desperate for a bass player. He just said, you know what, I'll play bass, which was good, you know. But he was also a great guitar player. We didn't want to lose his guitar playing, but we were kind of glad at least we were a step further to being a real band, having a bass player finally.
Yeah. Was getting Vic in the band the last piece of the puzzle back in the day on vocals?
Yeah, finding a singer took forever, and you know, the thing is with singers. I mean, if you're a guitar player or a drummer, you spend years learning your instrument. The thing with singers sometimes is, and everyone says, "Yeah, I'm a singer," just because you know I don't play an instrument, so I'll be a singer. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
and we had to go through a lot of people like that who you know, they weren't really serious about it. But the thing we liked about Vic the most was his look when he walked into the bass. And we were like, wow, if this guy works out, this is going to be great, and this is what we need. And you know, and he worked out, and you know, we finally had a singer. But it took a real long time. I mean, for a while we didn't think we'd ever have a singer. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that's how it was back then. But it
Yeah.
worked out.
Well, the band definitely had its, you know, its lineup changes over the years. I mean, a lot of people, I guess, were coming in and out, and there was a point in time when I guess maybe towards the end, Vic was actually still in the band, but you kind of took over the vocals. I mean, how did that go over at that time?
Well, not too good as far as Vic was
Yeah,
concerned,
I can
but
imagine.
we had gotten new management, and what happened was I started singing on a couple of tracks in the studio because, I mean, he's got a unique style. Let's face it. So a couple of the new songs that I wrote, his style really wasn't coming across the way the song was meant to sound, and the engineer in the studio suggested, he's like, hey, why don't you try it? Which I never thought about singing, but I figured let me give it a shot. And then we were like, hey, you know what, this actually sounds more the way the song was supposed to sound like. So, you know, I started doing a couple songs like that, and then management said, you know, we're kind of liking the way you're doing it better than what you have, and then you know a lot of personal problems and issues started creeping in, and just kind of worked out, and we definitely had a big falling out, and things got ugly, and things just worked out the way they did. Well, you
Yeah.
know, for better or worse.
I can imagine. It's one thing, like, if you're parting ways, now you're taking over the vocals, but to still have the guy in the band, that has to be difficult, especially, I mean, who was the one that broke the news to him? Did you guys do it, or was it your management at the time?
A little bit of both. I mean, it got ugly, but like I said, that wasn't the only situation. There were other issues that came creeping in, personal things, and
Yeah.
I'm not so sure Vic was still interested in even being in the band at that point. But
Oh, okay.
things happen. What are you gonna
It
do?
sure do. Well, something I didn't know that I just read was that Frank
Hmm.
Carabetta was behind the first record, and from Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs, a real big band back in the day, in
Right.
the early days of rock
Hmm.
and roll in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, well, he was good in a lot of ways because when we recorded that album, we were basically like 18-year-old kids, and we didn't really know what we were doing. I mean, we knew we wanted to record it. We were pretty tight, but we barely knew what a microphone was, and he helped us a lot in the studio, but he didn't know what heavy metal was, so he looked at us like, what the hell is going on here? Like he never heard this music before, so I'm not really sure he knew what to do as far as, like, he was like, two bass drums, or what is that?
Yeah.
So I don't know if he was the perfect guy for us, but he was the guy at the time, and everything happens for a reason, so it is what it is. But we made it through, and the thing I'm happy about is I was able to track down the original tapes and go through them track by track. So I was able to re-EQ a lot of stuff that really should have been done to begin with. There was a lot of noise and pops and crap, especially when the instruments weren't being played. Like if I was waiting to do a solo and he hit record, there was like 15 seconds of just noise, or, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
banging around on the strings and things like that. So I was able to eliminate a lot of that stuff and just punch it up a lot to bring the original recording to a level more in line with what you would hear today. Basically, what it should have been to begin with, I was able to kind of tweak from the original tapes, which I'm glad I was able to, because when I found those tapes, I wasn't sure there was going to be anything on them. I didn't know if they were going to be moldy
Sure.
or whatever. But luckily the tapes were still intact, and I was able to work with them. So and I really enjoyed going through all the tracks and remixing them. It brought back a lot of cool memories.
That's good. I mean, you look back now, like you said, it's all these years ago, and you've moved on to other things over your life, from different bands and
Hmm.
projects and stuff like that. Did you really
Right.
completely forget about all the old stuff that you did, or did it ever like come back to you every now and then over there saying, maybe we should do something with this, or was now just the time you felt like, the offer was made, and maybe this is the time that everybody should hear, what we did back then?
No, I didn't really think about it because I figured what's done is done. And at the time, obviously, there was no internet, so I thought we didn't exist. It was never
Yeah.
out on CD. I'm not sure CDs were even available. I don't think CDs were out yet, or if so, they were just coming out. Like there was only a few CDs albums that were coming out on CD, so there was no such thing as CD. We were only out on vinyl and cassette. And like I said, I didn't think people still knew or cared about the album, and I come to find out that they did, and I appreciate that, and I'm glad they still know and care about it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that was 87. I think it was a year or two later that you guys put another demo tape out. Was it the same lineup that was on the album, or were different people in the band at this point in time? I think it was
No,
Restless in the.
yeah, that was an EP that we did, and basically that was the reworking of the lineup. Vic had already left the band, and I had taken over on vocals,
Yeah.
and we actually went in and re-recorded a couple of the original tracks from the first album with new vocals, and we put on a couple live tracks and a couple of new songs. But then after that, we were lucky enough to hook up with Carl Kennedy of the Rods, and he was producing our next full-length album, which unfortunately was never released because, like I said, at that point, the whole grunge thing changed, and we were looking for a label, and I ended up playing in another band with Bobby from Overkill, which nothing ever happened with that. And then just everything, the whole metal scene just kind of got put on hold, unfortunately.
It's true. The album that you did, I mean, back then in the '80s, I mean, Carl Kennedy was like the house producer for like Megaforce. I mean, he worked with
Right.
everybody from Excited to Anthrax. I
Hmm.
mean, you name it. He was involved in it. So it must have been a big thing, the hook up with him. But did that? I know you
Oh
said
man,
it was a bad time, but whatever happened to those songs? I mean, for the album.
they're still here, and hopefully, if all goes well with this re-release, we'll release them at some point too. And I do have. Speaking of Carl, I have a major announcement that I'm telling. You're the first person I'm telling this.
Ah,
Carl
nice.
Kennedy is now the drummer in Killen,
That's
as well as the
phenomenal,
Rods.
man. Oh
Yeah,
man,
so I'm really
that's good
excited
stuff.
about that. Yeah,
Oh, congratulations. Carl's on the show next
thanks,
week,
man.
actually. So I'll have to talk to
Awesome.
him about that too. That's going to be great. Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic, man. So
yeah.
my
Because
next
I
question, I
mean,
guess, is
yeah.
obsolete. I was going to say, is the band going to get back together? I guess that's the answer.
Yeah, man, we're already working on that, and hopefully we're going to start doing some shows soon.
Oh man, that'll be fantastic. Like you said, when you go back to the older stuff, the stuff that Vic was on, singing, I know you re-recorded some of it, but is it harder to go back and emulate his style, or are you going to change the change all the songs to kind of fit your stylings now, or update them? Or are you going to try to keep them as original as you can? It's a lot of years and a lot of changes.
As far as what live,
Uh,
you mean?
Live doing the stuff that Vic sang on earlier. You
Yeah,
try to
well,
emulate like his way, like because like you said, he had a very unique singing style, and you were
yeah, well,
completely different.
I I mean, if I'm going to do the vocals, I will not try and emulate Vic, because the way he sang them was actually not the way I heard them in my head when I wrote them. I mean, the
Ah,
way
okay.
I sang them was I mean, there was a voice in my head when I wrote the songs, kind of how the vocals should be, and then I come to realize later that voice is mine, you know. But so yeah, I
It's
mean,
hard.
I'm just gonna, if I do the vocals when we go out and play, I will do them in my own style,
Well,
and
are you
if
gonna?
someone else is doing it, they'll do it in their own style.
Are you? Do you plan on? Is it the idea to look for like a front man to sing, or you haven't really decided yet?
Well, right now I could say Carl is going to play drums. I have Mark Vasquez, the original bass player. He's down for playing bass, and of course I'm
Oh,
down. So I mean, the vocals, whatever happens, that's going to be a surprise at this point. But it's
okay.
all being worked on.
That's fantastic, man. I hope you guys can get out there and play this year. It'd be great to see you guys live. Man, what a
Yeah,
throwback
man.
that'll be.
Yeah,
Incredible.
I
All
mean
these years later.
we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I do. I mean, I know the album's going to do well because there's so many diehard fans that talk about it, and I get requests on the show to play it, and we play it. I mean, the old tunes, so it'll be great. But I really want to hear the stuff that you guys recorded later on. I mean, is it a departure from the first record? Is it musically, is it different, or does it sound like it would be the follow up to the first record?
Well, it is the follow up. So I mean, it is what it is. But with Vic not being on vocals, of course, it's going to sound different. But I still wrote all the songs, so it's going to be me on vocals. But yeah, it's killing. It is what it is. What it is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's the hardest part of being in a band today, do you think? I mean, you live in Staten Island. Is it hard to get people to pay the $16 toll to come out here to play and rehearse? Or do you have to find local people that don't have an easy pass?
Well, I love the technology that's available today, and a lot of things that were totally unimaginable back then, like click tracks, for example. With a
Yeah.
click track, a drummer could play, from 1,000 miles away, and a singer could record in another state and email you his vocal tracks, things like that. So as long as if the drummer's playing to a click and he's tight, the band's always going to be tight. So I mean, we used to rehearse 5 nights a week, but these days it may not be necessary to do that. So
It's a
that's
different
one
time.
thing that technology is good for.
Sure. Yeah, Mitch, you were saying after everything fell apart with the band that you hooked up with Bobby Gustafson. I think that was
Right.
I Four and I, whatever it was. I don't recall back in
Exactly.
time. I
Yeah,
guess
it was.
coming out of Overkill, you probably thought that was gonna like take off, be major, but it kind of died on the vine. That thing.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be something big because he had just left Kill and
Yeah.
he announced that he was starting a new band, and it was also, besides Bobby, is Rob Steele from a band called Law and Order, who they were pretty big at the time too. So I thought, how can this thing fail? But
Yeah.
it never really took off, and I think Bobby started playing with the Cycle Sluts from Hell, which they had just put an album out, which I don't think ever did as well as they were hoping for, and but like I said, that was the same time the grunge thing started happening. It was just like everything just started getting ugly around that time.
Yeah. Well, at that time, musically, did you feel like there was still hope for like playing, the classic metal that you grew up playing, or did you feel like if you wanted to be in a band at the time, you kind of had to change your style of sound, or was it something that you were willing to do?
Well, I was never going to change. I mean, we were metal, and that was that. And if you didn't like it, screw you. I mean, there was no way. I saw other people around me. Well, we're going to sound like Alice in Chains now, or we're going to sound like. And I was like, I'm not going to try and sound like Alice in Chains, because if I wanted to sound like Alice in Chains, I would have sounded like Alice in Chains all along. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's not. It wasn't from the heart. If it doesn't come natural, why do it?
That's true. I mean, you have to kind of feel and love what you're doing. Otherwise, what's the point of it? I mean, I'll just take Anthrax out of the hat. They changed their sound and style every couple of years to fit into whatever was going on. And I guess to
Right.
stay relevant and to stay, to keep active and be a part of the scene. But I mean, can you really be that interested in so many different genres of music every couple of years that you're just willing to change your band's whole
No,
identity to do it?
no, and as a fan, as a kid, it would piss me off when like bands would try that. Like, I was so disappointed in Judas Priest. I mean, people talk about the Turbo Love It. I mean, that's not even that bad. What they did after that was they did the soundtrack for this horrible movie called Johnny Be
Johnny
Good. I
Be
don't know
Good.
if anyone remembers that, when they were starting to experiment with MIDI guitars and all this
Yep.
crap, and I was like, what the hell are they doing, man? I was like,
It was
why are they
crazy.
doing this? And luckily after that, I mean, to me, they were dead, and then they came back with Painkiller, which was probably the greatest album.
Absolutely.
So they redeemed themselves. But Celtic Frost did the same thing, or Celtic Frost with the Cherry Orchard. I don't know if you remember
Yep.
that.
I
They
sure
tried to
do.
go and Poser or
Yeah.
whatever the hell they were trying to do, and that was a flop. So I would never want to do that.
No, I can see the segue with Judas Priest going into that music and coming out of it, but I can never Celtic Frost. When I saw Tom Warrior, like in white face makeup and lipstick, it's just that just didn't fly. That's
Yeah,
really a departure.
and also too, they realized it was a flop, and they came back, and I
Yeah.
actually saw them in a club in Manhattan. It was called Downtown or something, and they kept a couple of those Poser guys, and people were there to throw things at them, unfortunately.
Oh man.
So I mean, you got to be careful
Yeah.
when you do something like that, because you're gonna piss off a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, you talking about the band, you had management, and I'm sure they worked with you guys to make decisions on, where the band should go and what you should do. Do you think when bands do stuff like that and change, like Celtic Frost or even Priest at that level, I mean, it's more of a management decision, or the people behind the scenes kind of coercing the band to move into that direction? Or do you think a lot of it is
Yeah,
solely, I mean, Priest
of,
were at a
of
different level than Celtic Frost?
Yeah, well, when corporations get involved, they
Yeah.
have shareholders and investors and people that they're not creative people. They're the same people that work in IBM and Bank of America, and they don't know what the hell's going on. And yeah, those people start making the decisions.
It's crazy. Mitch, something that I didn't know is that you actually did the artwork on the album.
Right? Yeah.
I didn't know you were an artist. I mean, you're an artist, but I mean, I didn't like a drawing type artist either. That's some great artwork. Was that something you always interested in, or something you always did?
Yeah, I always considered myself an artist, and I did the original cover, but I think all artists go through this. A couple of years later, after seeing that cover again, after not seeing it for a few years, I was like, I think I could have did better. So luckily, they allowed me to redo an updated version for this re-release, and it's basically the same cover, the same idea, the same layout, but I think I just kind of stepped it up a little bit more and punched it up a little. So
Yeah, beautiful piece of artwork.
thanks,
That's
man.
poster
Thanks.
worthy. We need a poster of
Thank you.
that.
Well,
Hey, well,
I think Manos will have that coming.
I'll get on him about it. Don't worry. We'll get that included in the big package. Hey, but Mitch, I can't thank you enough for coming on here today, man. I got about 10 minutes left in the show. I want to get on some new music from the album. Not new music, but music off the new record, the new old
Right.
record, I should say. But I can't wait to see you guys live, man. I hope it happens. I will be front to center when it does. The record comes out in about 2 weeks, I believe, right on the 22nd of May. The re-release.
May 22nd. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's going to be great, man. And Mitch, I can't thank you enough for coming on here today. And
Yeah,
please get that band out there live.
Thanks so much for having me. And we have a new website, Killen, all one word.com. And we also have a brand new Facebook page. It's Killen Official on Facebook.
I'm going to put those links up on the page so people can find them and check you guys out. And they should all order this record because I think that's the only way we're going to get the follow-up with the material that Carl was on that wasn't released.
Yep, it's coming. Keep an eye out for it.
We will, man. Mitch, thank you very much, man. It was great talking with you today. And hopefully I'll see you around the island.
Awesome, man. Cool. Thanks.
You got it, buddy. Take care.
All right. Bye.
There you go. Killen. The record will be out May 22nd on Cult Metal Classic Records. Manos does great jobs on his album, so go pick it up, support him and his label, and that's the way we're guaranteed to get the follow-up record by Killen. Here's Soldiers in Steel.
world.